So I feel like this has been talked about, but it hasn't really been talked about enough. Paul George is gearing up to be one of the worst contracts in the NBA. And over the summer when he got signed, we kind of looked at this as Paul George is on the upper half of 30 now. He's getting a 4-year, $200 million deal. You're probably going to have a 2-year window to where after those 2 years, this could be one of the worst contracts in the NBA. But now we move into halfway through his first season on the contract, and he's been extremely underwhelming. This season, Paul George is averaging about 16.5 points on 54% true shooting. And I think the reason this has not been talked about enough is because the Philadelphia 76ers are kind of a dumpster fire right now. Joel Embiid has been in and out of the lineup all season long. It looks like he's probably not going to be at full strength at all this season. Tyrese Maxey had a very low start to the season, but he has picked it up as recently. And Jared McCain looked like he was the best player for the 76ers at one point in the season, and now he's out for the season. So with all the bad things that are happening around the Philadelphia 76ers team, you kind of gloss over Paul George and how disappointing he's been. But one thing the media has not been really letting up on for Paul George is his podcast. With the way Paul George is struggling this season, you would think that he would take a step back from the podcasting and just trying to get those episodes out. And he really hasn't, and the NBA is just really letting him have it. And if you ask me, as a content creator, I wish I had the motion Paul George had as a podcaster. So I'm not going to discredit him at all. I'm not going to bash him at all. Hey, if you want to get money outside the NBA, do your thing.
This second nature, putting belt to the paper. These lines gon' shake pavement like Lucas trade to the Lakers. A fine bitch taker, we riding waves in Jamaica. I put my chin to the sky and give thanks that I'm not a hater. Wood grain taking steer in my life. Robbers raised the kids, so you won't catch me with fear in the eye. Thank God, another celebration. Put beer in the sky. Clean glasses every other night, cause I'm me and that's tight.
Yeah, just get my body, tonight was tough. The past couple weeks it's been tough on my body. Just growing, just been lingering. So this, time off should definitely help. I just tonight I didn't have no burst. It was bothering me, but I tried to be available. But
Why are they
this break
zooming in on the stats, bro?
I remember going on 3 years ago.
Why are they zooming in on the stats, bro? Why are they zooming in on the stats, gang? That's awful. Oh my God.
Help.
Why are they zooming in on the stats, bro?
I just tonight I didn't have no burst. It was bothering me, but I tried to be available.
They fouled.
But this break definitely needed.
I remember going on 3 years ago. Draymond Green was in the middle of the finals, and he was struggling significantly. And even in the midst of him having all of that going on, he was still recording his podcast. Now, even back then, when player podcasts were a little less prevalent, it was still an odd look. Stephen Curry's legacy was literally on the line. Draymond Green wasn't playing well. And even through all of that, he still had time to get home, set up his hotel equipment even after games, and give his audience content. It doesn't even matter what the sport is. It's something about active players' podcast in the middle of the season, especially when commenting on live events in your own sport, that just feels weird. Nevertheless, that's Draymond Green. And regardless of how you feel about him, he is one of the most accomplished players in this league. Now, what about that guy in Philly on a max contract named Paul? Paul George literally hasn't won anything significant for any organization ever, yet he feels extremely entitled, and he has some of the most tone-deaf quotes
y'all
ever.
dragging it.
Because when I was in the
Y'all dragging it, bro. Y'all dragging it. Like, y'all ain't got to take it that far, man. Y'all don't have to take it that far. He talked about Paul George has not won anything of significance for any franchise in his entire career. Like, come on, man. Like, damn. To be honest, I don't see what's the big deal in podcasting. Like, Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. I don't think there's much more they could do for this Knicks team. If they're gonna podcast, let them podcast. Now, if Paul George is struggling the way he is, and it's like, oh, okay, y'all done paid me, I'm not really showing much interest. I'm going back to the locker room for like jammed thumb incidents I heard on social media. If he's podcasting, he ain't missing a podcast, so he shouldn't be missing a game, especially if he's healthy. So I could understand that, but y'all taking it too far. Like, this is
like,
Mr.
man, you should've
Erykah
been a
Badu
Laker.
himself.
That's all I was hearing.
Hold on.
Wasn't no like, oh, welcome to the Clippers. Yo, we happy you in LA, but you should have been a Laker.
You was on the second team.
I'm on the B team.
Paul George said this offseason he didn't sign back with the LA Clippers because basically they didn't value his worth. And I'll just let him explain it.
Season in, I finished healthy. Now they bring it to 3 years.
Where we at?
150. Give me the 3 years, 150, no trade then. Like no trade clause. Then I'm taking less, but at least I know I'm here. Like I'm committed to y'all. Like they didn't want to do the no trade.
Do that?
Wow.
Basically, this man was hell-bent on him getting the same bad contract that Kawhi Leonard got. But oh yeah, I want to make mine even worse. Get me a no trade clause.
I want to make mine
One contending
even
team
worse.
is literally in the worst situation right now. It's the Phoenix Suns. Now, why exactly are they even in this situation to begin with? It's because they obtained literally the worst situation in sports, Bradley Beal's contract. Why exactly is Bradley Beal's contract so bad? Because he makes a fuck ton of money, yet he's not
Oh
worth
my
the money
God,
he commands,
he is-
or the no trade clause that's in that contract that allows him to call the shots on where he plays on said contract. That's why this dude right here literally wanted that exact same power. Now that his hometown team basically said, bro, you're not worth it, go test the market and find a desperate sucker, he did exactly that and got that max contract. And what exactly is he doing now? Is he on a revenge tour? Is he back working with that MVP trainer that he told us about a few years ago? Like, what exactly is he doing?
Podcast P fam, welcome back to another episode of Podcast P.
Welcome back to another episode
Yo,
of
this
Podcast
video
P.
is funny as
Podcast P.
shit.
Podcast P.
This
fam.
video
Welcome
is
back
funny
to
as
another
hell.
episode
Who
of
is this?
Podcast P.
Who is this? Who is this? Swish out. You are a funny guy, bro. You are a funny guy. You are a funny guy. I think you got a new subscriber after this video is over.
Jimmy Butler just left Miami pretty much because he wanted his money. Pat Riley obviously doesn't pay players for what they've done. He wants to pay you for what you will do for his organization. Cool. Personally, I understand both sides. And I'm actually warming up to Jimmy Butler in Golden State. He looks very happy.
Yeah,
but
I'm
you
not
know
gonna
the
lie.
perfect
I'm
example
warming up to
as
Jimmy,
to why Jimmy Butler
Golden
couldn't
State
get
too,
that
man.
contract.
I
And
was
why
lower on
a
the
lot of
trade.
older players don't get additional max contracts. It's 2025 Paul George. Paul George, he had 2 points last night against Brooklyn. Paul George, he's on an annual salary that will pay him $53 million all the way up until he's 37.
Yeah, Bronny outscored him this night. Bronny went in the game and had 9, and like those minutes that he had divided by like 4 or 5. Who knows?
Let me say this right now. This man
People
isn't
not ready to say
Kevin
it, but
Durant,
Jared McCain's
who's
the best
still
player on
doing
the
this
team.
thing at 36. He's not
It's that
nowhere
simple.
near LeBron, who's clearly still doing this thing at 40. This man looks cooked now.
This
And
man
unlike
looks
those guys,
cooked.
he's nowhere near as committed, clearly. Norman Powell said after Paul George left, it's basically addition by subtraction. And it came off as harsh, but I mean, was he lying? No, the Clippers aren't as good as they
Clippers
were
look good,
last year,
man.
mainly because they had a much healthier Kawhi last year. But Norman Powell specifically, he's arguably having a better season this year than any Clippers Paul George year. Oh, and what makes it even worse is the Philadelphia 76ers.
I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that. Like, Norman Powell's playing great, but let's relax now. Let's relax now, okay? Because any better than any Paul George Clipper tenured season, I don't know. I don't know about that. You know, Paul George had a hell of a run in 2021. A hell of a run. Let's look at the stats. All right, if you can see my screen, I'm gonna try and zoom in just a little bit. Here's the what's the name right here. Paul George averaged about 23 points per game, about 7 rebounds and 5 assists. And I'm gonna actually get the numbers, what he averaged when Kawhi went out. So give me just a second. So Kawhi went down in game 4 against the Utah Jazz in the semifinals that year. I believe that was 2021. Yeah, the Jazz were the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. And Paul George averaged 29, 11, and 6 in an 8-game. It was an 8-game span, don't get me wrong, but 29, 11, and 6. Like, I don't think let's just step back just a little bit, okay? Like, I understand, like, people got, like, and this is the thing. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna make my screen full. I'm about to go on my own mini rant here for Paul George and the Clippers situation. A lot of people look at this situation with the Clippers and Paul George and it being one of the worst trades of all time. I don't know if people were just ignoring how dangerous the Clippers were when this trade first happened, or how good Paul George and Kawhi were on their teams that they were on before they got to the Clippers. The Clippers were the favorites to come out the West until the bubble. Like, it doesn't matter how good the Lakers were playing. As a Laker fan, I did not want to see the Clippers in a playoff series. I just did not want to see it. I did not want to see them at all. And for just not hypothetical reasons, but just looking at the matchups, you're not going to have LeBron guard Kawhi or Paul George. You're not going to have Alex Caruso guard Kawhi. KCP was the main defender on Kawhi in those games, and Kawhi used to fuck KCP up every time he could. Kawhi used to bust KCP ass every time. I did not want to see the Clippers at all. I swear to God, I did not want to see the Clippers. And at the time, you did not know SGA was going to be at the level that he was. And if you sit here and tell me that if you sit here and tell me in 2019, you knew SGA was going to be the player that he is today, you are lying to me. And I'm not going to believe you. Paul George was playing at an MVP level, and Kawhi Leonard had just had his best playoff run in his entire career before they got traded to the Clippers. And if we really look deeply into some of these teams, I think 2021 would have been the best year for them to win the championship, and then Kawhi goes down. Kawhi was playing at a fantastic level before he went down. Paul George was not even better, but he had elevated to his game that we had not seen in previous years in the playoffs. This team was good enough to go win a championship in 2021. It's just the injury bug. It bit them. Kawhi misses the whole season. The next season, he misses the whole season. The Clippers don't go to the playoffs. Then in 2023, the Clippers sneak into the playoffs as, I believe, the 5th seed. And Kawhi Leonard busts the Suns' ass, but he doesn't finish that series. And then in 2024, Kawhi is injured again. So once again, people go back and look at this Clippers trade as it is just this bad trade, or is this just this all-time terrible trade? When 100%, if you go back and you just don't know what SGA is going to become, you make that move 9 times out of 10. Damn near 10 times out of 10. So I don't want to hear that shit with the bad trade shit. I don't want to hear it. Now, back to the regularly scheduled program. Let's get back to the video.
His fans absolutely hated Tobias Harris because it looks like he stole money. Well, Tobias Harris last year was better than Paul George now. The 76ers are an absolute mess. Joel Embiid is literally playing on a knee that he knows is done. And the player that they brought there possibly to help carry at least Joel into the playoffs, what is he doing? This season alone, mind you, Joel Embiid has been gone the majority of the year. Paul George has more games under 10 than he does over 30. Look at Paul George's non-existent impact. When he's on the floor, they're actually a worse team all across the board. So basically, you stole money from an extremely passionate city like Philly, who's traumatized by stuff like this and this and this and so on. And then you have the nerve to be a consistent content creator.
God.
The new NBA.
Do y'all remember
wild.
that?
Whatever.
Do y'all remember when Jahlil Okafor got his ass knocked out? Like, bro, oh my God. Yo, that just brought back a memory. I did not remember that. Jahlil Okafor was caught fighting outside of the arena. Wasn't he fighting like a fan or something? Like, that's embarrassing. Markelle Fultz, miss. Ben Simmons, miss. Now, I'm not saying at the time these were misses. These were the obvious picks at the time. Ben Simmons was the obvious pick back in 2016. And then the very next year, you trade up for Markelle Fultz. You don't necessarily want Ben Simmons to be the primary ball handler, so you go get a point guard, and Markelle Fultz looked like that guy. So once again, not a bad pick. And I think Markelle Fultz was the consensus #1 pick in that draft. So once again, not a bad pick at the time, but it was a miss. You go get Jahlil Okafor, miss. Nerlens Noel, miss. Tyrese Maxey was a hit. He turned out well. Joel Embiid was a hit. He turned out solid. I mean, I'm not saying solid as in how he became as a player, but solid as for his situation, because once again, he has had injury problems throughout his entire career. So yeah, it just sucks, man, because the 76ers just cannot catch a break. They cannot catch a break. Losing out on Jimmy Butler for Tobias Harris. I truly think their 2019 roster was probably their best roster that they've had, or one of the best rosters that they have had. And if they would have beat the Raptors, who knows how far they would have gotten, man. Kevin Durant was down for the Golden State Warriors. They could have beaten the Bucks. How much does the narrative change if Kawhi does not hit that shot? How much? Find out on At The Buzzer Sports, because we're going to be doing 2K videos. I'm just bullshitting. Let's see. Let's get back to the video, though.
Left of Paul George's legacy feels like it's being tainted more and more by the year. And the biggest problem with Paul, in my opinion, is the fact that he talks way too much. You said this about your contract.
But I thought I did enough to earn
To
that.
earn that money.
Yet last playoffs, when the series was tied 2 games apiece, you did this. After Dame hit one of the craziest shots ever on you, you were adamant and persistent on calling that a bad shot. You wanted to leave Indiana, whose best player played every single game in that jersey despite winning nothing, yet you want them to treat you like you're Reggie. You said you're bored playing center, as if you're doing anything else productive on the floor. The player that I'm actually starting to have a lot more appreciation for, who actually has a very similar career to Paul George.
He got me up out of there too.
Shit, yeah, we was out of there. Out of there.
Y'all both were struggling playing against LeBron.
Man, what? It's over.
They swept us 4-0.
Yeah, we was swept too.
Yeah.
We got swept too. Shit.
Since the 2010s, the player who leads the NBA in games, kinda by a landslide, is DeMar DeRozan. You know who also leads the NBA in minutes, kinda by a landslide, is DeMar DeRozan. This man has 11 seasons playing 70-plus games. LeBron has 13. DeMar DeRozan is available, he's consistent, he's productive, and he's quiet. DeMar is older than Paul George. DeMar makes half of Paul George's salary despite being much more productive. I don't hear him on a podcast talking about how valuable he is. He's literally just quietly hooping. I gotta respect that.
Season in, I finished healthy. 74 games played.
Yep.
Paul George played 74 games last year. That was by far the most he ever has in a Clippers uniform. And now in hindsight, it just felt very on timing to qualify, get your numbers, get your bag, get comfortable, and get right back behind your mic in your second career. Last year, in a contract year without Kawhi, Paul George did this. This year, after getting that contract without Joel Embiid, Paul George is doing this. Yeah, I know Paul George has been injured on and off, and I get that, but if I consistently see this from my max player on the court, and then I go home and see this from my max player on my phone, I'm gonna be pissed. Thank God the Eagles won.
Facts.
If you guys like this video,
Thank God
let me
Philadelphia,
know in
the
the comment
Eagles won.
section how
Thank
exactly
God.
you feel about Paul George.